I just watched Pearl, released 2022, directed by Ty West, starring Mia Goth, written by them both. This film is part of what's called the X trilogy. I will have to watch the other 2 films at some point. It will be hard for them to top this one, but we will see. Pearl is like a high 8. Pearl prays to God to get away from everything she knows and loves in order to be a star. That's all she wants. I love how far she is willing to go for something so shallow, and she goes for it. She ends up regretting pretty quickly. She clearly has a part of her that enjoys that simple, good life she had before. But is that part of her big enough to stop these heinous acts? She might remind you of a lot of normal girls you know. She is pleasant when you meet her, hardworking and family-oriented. This is the Pearl her mother Ruth dreams of. The real Pearl we'll get to. She is why I had to recap this film. And this video obviously contains spoilers. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a video. I think everyone has seen Pearl all the way through besides me. However, if you haven't, you should. Let me tell you why. The movie opens up with a girl on her farm. She is wearing one of her mother's dresses. Suddenly, a spotlight is on her. She begins dancing in an intense daydream. She is a star. This is Pearl. Her mother Ruth charges into the room, interrupts, and in German tells her to go do her chores and stop lollygagging. Pearl changes her clothes and heads down to the barn. She tells Charlie the cow that one day he will never see her again, that her mother is wrong. She goes and dances and plays and frolics. When a goose walks in, she grabs a pitchfork and then stabs the goose. Everything about Pearl is a little off. She gives snide remarks to the animals about her future, never once joking. Who knows how many animals have been harmed by her hand. She then takes that goose and feeds it to the alligator Theta. That night, her and Ruth are getting what little food they have ready for dinner, and Ruth is visibly frustrated with her daughter's actions lately. I think the mom kinda knows how crazy Pearl is. Ruth tells her to go get her dad, and this is pretty much the dad's life, by the way. The dad is very ill. He can't walk or talk. He is taken care of and at the mercy of Pearl almost all day. The mother is busy breaking her back working, and he ends up exactly how you think he will. They both do. The family eats dinner. Pearl is instructed to feed her father before she eats, and then has to bathe him. When they are done with dinner, she goes with him to do just that. She reads a letter from her husband, Howard. He is away at war. Pearl doesn't say one thing about this letter or her love for her husband. She just puts it down, feeds her dad his medicine, and bathes herself in front of him. She tells him how excited she is to go to the lovely pictures tomorrow when she goes to get his medicine. Ruth eventually comes in to get him, wondering why Pearl is bathing in front of him. Pearl saying she doesn't want to waste the water. Ruth instructs her to wear a mask tomorrow and to not get too close to anyone while she is in town. The next day, she goes to get her dad's medicine and then off to the pictures. She loves it there. She gets to see the dancers, and Pearl has a great time, morphine and all. When it's over, she is admiring the movie poster outside as the projectionist walks out. He is given no other name than that. He tells her he wouldn't mind seeing her up there with all the dancers. She's pretty enough after all. These two become lovers, and Pearl eventually kills him because he sees that she has something extremely wrong with her. The projectionist is also not real. He is a manifestation of her psyche. He tells us what is going on in Pearl's head. Pearl tells the projectionist she must be getting back. Her mother is expecting her. And before she leaves, he tells her don't forget to live your life too. On the way home, she loses the frame he gave her from the picture in a cornfield and goes to look for it. She ends up coming across a scarecrow that she dances and deeply makes out with before she yells in its face that she is married. Then she continues to fantasize about it and has a little too much fun and takes his hat. She gets home to a hard-working Ruth, who immediately starts questioning her daughter and then instructs her to wash her hair, clean and change her father, and most importantly, leave the hat outside. By the way, there's like a plague going around, so the mother doesn't want any outside objects inside her home to get them even more sick. Pearl obviously doesn't care. She hasn't mentioned the plague once. She doesn't care about anything but being a star. While getting her father cleaned up, she gets close to his face and wonders if he is even still in there. She chokes him and then eventually let's go. Dinner that night is rocky. Ruth makes Pearl save hers for breakfast because she spent the money Ruth gave her on candy, she says. That night, Pearl wishes to God to make her the biggest star this world has ever seen. The next day, her wealthy in-laws visit and bring a pig for them to eat. Ruth doesn't accept it, leaving it on the porch. Mitzi, who is Pearl's sister-in-law and Howard's sister, quietly tells Pearl about a dance audition coming this Saturday. If you are picked, you will tour 7 different cities, dancing and performing with the other girls who were chosen. Mitzi is going to go in secret because her mother would not be happy if she knew, on account of the plague going around. Neither of their moms would be happy about it. So she and Pearl make a promise to go together in secret. That night, she is excited and sneaks out to meet the projectionist. In the black hat, of course. We get more evidence he is not real when he is talking to Pearl. She asks him where he's from. He says he's not really from or living anywhere. Life is more dreamy that way, and he doesn't want to wake up anytime soon. He is someone who packs up and leaves whenever and wherever he wants to. It's literally everything Pearl wants. He shows her a dirty movie as it's an escape from reality. Pearl agrees she doesn't like reality, then corrects where she lives, she means, and she can't just leave because of her mother and father. Projectionist got scared when she said maybe they should just die. That is her being scared of herself having those thoughts. The projectionist then suggests that waiting till they're dead may be too late. He suggests she go overseas to Europe with him when the pandemic ends. She can be anything she wants there. She is delighted, thanks him, and leaves to go back home. I think Ruth knows about this other side of Pearl. When Pearl sneaks back in her house, you can hear Ruth bawling her eyes out in the middle of the night. This is how she spends her nights. Pearl spends her nights fantasizing about killing her parents while her mother is crying in her room. She hops in bed that night sneering at her husband's photo. The next day, she almost feeds her father to Theta, but Ruth comes and saves him. Before she wheels him off, she gives Pearl some of the best advice a mother can give her daughter, and Pearl isn't listening. She takes her frustrations out on a baby egg, imagining it's her husband being blown up. I said the last dinner was rocky, and this dinner will be the last one the family has together. The fireplace is going, and of course, a storm is brewing outside. Pearl's mother has bad news for her. She has found the flyer from the pictures. She tells Pearl to take her dinner and go eat it in the bunkhouse. She wants her in there until they know she is not ill. Pearl tells her mother she is going to an audition, one that will lead her to a life that is more than this. As she looks at her father, Ruth is now angry. Pearl thinks this life is beneath her. Ruth tells Pearl she sees what she does when she thinks no one is watching, threatening to just kill the father for Pearl. She finally puts the knife down and tells Pearl to leave, and when she fails, remember what that feels like, because that is exactly how Ruth feels every time she looks at her. After all she has given up for Pearl, Ruth asks, what more does she want? And Pearl responds, just not to end up like you is all. Ruth walks to Pearl and slaps her hard across the face. Pearl comes back up screaming, I hate you, and slaps her mother back. Ruth grabs her daughter, yelling that she is not better than her, and Pearl retorts, yes, I am. I'm gonna be a star. The whole world is gonna know my name. And they scuffle, as the dad has no choice but to watch like always. Ruth ends up catching fire, and Pearl puts her out with boiling hot water from the stove. Her mother is now in terrible shape, horribly burned and almost out of the way. Pearl drags her down to the basement, hitting her head on each step. Her dad is trembling by the table, scared of his daughter. She runs to the projectionist, hops into his arms, and in her dreams that night, she dreams of being on stage. What Pearl doesn't know is this is the closest she will ever get to that dream. As she wakes up, she rushes to get ready. It is Saturday, the day of her audition. While she is rushing, the projectionist calmly gives her the black hat. She sees who she thinks might be Howard on the way home, but she is not really sure. Pearl is not positive who anyone is anymore. The projectionist doesn't blame her. It's hard to tell with all these masks people are wearing. When they get back to the house, he comes in wearing the black hat, meets her father, and hears sounds coming from the basement. Pearl says it's her dog, and then when giving him a tour of the barn, slips up and says they have no dog. She notices that he knows something is awry, and then when he can no longer confirm he is taking her away to Europe with him, she freaks out completely. Like a child, she yells at him saying, I don't understand, I thought you liked me. The projectionist is scared of Pearl as she cannot calm down. He wishes her luck at the audition and tries to leave the farm. That is when Pearl kills him with a pitchfork and feeds his body to Theta. Ruth is almost completely dead, suffering in the basement, and Pearl goes down to give her her own words from earlier, before kicking her further down the stairs. Getting ready for her audition, Pearl dresses up in her mother's red dress. She asks her father how it looks before suffocating him with a pillow. They are officially out of her way, and it is audition time. She fails the audition. That's it. She does some of this. And it fails. They don't want her. They have enough brunettes. Go figure. Pearl cannot believe what she is hearing and can only see her mother's staring face in the crowd as she begs and pleads with the judges. It never once occurred to Pearl she might not make the cut. Talent wasn't something she even considered. She just deemed it was her family's fault she wasn't a star. So, she's taken away. Mitzi does her audition and the two go back to Pearl's. Mitzi, like always, is in high spirits. They don't know the first thing about quality dancing, but she isn't a farm girl that just killed everything she loved for this. Mitzi is rich. She'll go right back home and be fine. Pearl has always been a little jealous of her, and her thinking Mitzi got the part over her isn't helping either. I think there may be something really wrong with me, Mitzi. Mitzi tells Pearl to tell her what's wrong, reminding her Howard adores her, and tells Pearl to talk to her as if she is Howard. It's an almost 8-minute uninterrupted dialogue Mia Goth delivers here. In the monologue, Pearl explains she wants Howard dead. She wants to die herself at the thought of having a child, and she is not a good person. Mitzi is just as in shock and wants to leave, and as she tries, she meets the same fate as the imaginary projectionist and the goose and Ruth and the dad. Pearl then goes down to the basement to hug and hold her dead mother, imagining Ruth singing to her. Pearl has failed at becoming a star. She calmly chops up Mitzi and feeds her to Theta, then brushes Ruth's hair as it falls off her scalp, puts her pitchfork in the barn where it goes, and gets her parents' bodies around the table for dinner. Pearl envisions her mother and her saying "I love you" to each other in German. It is all she wants in this moment. Days later, Howard eventually comes home and sees the scene at the table. She walks in from doing her chores and smiles at him for a very, very, very long time.